Welcome back to Green is Good, and we're so honored to have with us on the show today Melody Anderson. She has a very interesting story to tell us about her work in the addiction field and ecotherapy. Welcome to Green is Good, Melody.
Well, welcome, John. How are you?
I am great today. I'm so excited to have you on because this topic has never been covered by us. I've never even seen it in the media, and you're going to cover this very important and timely topic because the issue of addictions and where we've gone in society and the help that we need is something that just isn't getting enough coverage. So it's just an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you. So, how can we help the listeners out there?
Well,
today?
before we get there, and I want to get to your great practice called Counseling by Melody, and you have a wonderful website, counselingbymelody.com. I'm on it. I want our listeners, if you have a tablet or an iPad or something, and you can go on it while we're doing this, and you're listening, please do it. Counselingbymelody.com. Melody, share your journey. Like, how did you even get into this field of helping people, number one, and then ecotherapy, number two?
Well, I think everything in life is a matter of shifts and changes. And there's an old saying, adapt or die.
Yeah.
and I'm a great believer that those who are flexible, kind of like the bamboo reed, those who are flexible can make it through storms, and those who are rigid and say life has to be a specific way are going to have a harder time.
Yeah.
And I had a very interesting, I still have, I think I'm still alive, life. I trained as a journalist, and I then became an actor and screenwriter, and now I'm a therapist. And what was behind all of it was I've always enjoyed being able to communicate to people and affect their emotional state.
Mm.
And I paint as well, and my paintings, in fact, do that as well. Some horrify them, and some absolutely just create calm, and some make people laugh. And so that has sort of been the internal drive in me. I grew up in a family, sadly, where there was some alcoholism, and which is a lot of why I got into this field.
Right.
And I kept thinking that I could make people laugh and that would make them feel better, or they would stop drinking, or the fighting would stop, whatever it would be. And that's kind of been the underlying, whether it's as an actress or a screenwriter or a journalist or as a painter or a therapist, the theme is always the same, of this desire to move people out of their emotional state to find some peace.
Interesting. And so in your therapy, what made you decide to develop this subsect, but it's fascinating, this eco-minded therapy?
Well, the research has shown, and this came out about 10, 15 years ago, when they started to talk about SAD, seasonal affective disorder, that hits people in the winter when they're getting less sun. And they started to discover that when they put people in front of a lamp that mimicked the sun's rays, people actually got better. And so we started to realize that something like vitamin D, which is, we only get it from the sun,
right,
and also sitting in front of these lamps in the winter actually move people out of these depressive states. So there has been study. That's sort of where it started, and it fascinated me because therapy is going more and more into understanding how the brain functions.
Right. And
that with exercise you put out endorphins, and that makes you feel better and more energized, as well as the other brain transmitters, dopamine, which is the one that makes you feel like you want at Vegas, and then serotonin, which is the one where you're just sitting around going, what I feel really good about today.
So vitamin D, these lamps that you're talking about. What other suggestions do you make when you start an eco-minded therapy process with someone?
Well, sometimes I might even just if someone's uncomfortable in the room, I might take them just for a walk.
Oh.
And the movement alone and the focus on nature, it changes a person's sense of being kind of trapped in a room or being judged.
Yeah. Right.
But there's some real specific things that we've discovered, and the field is broadening, and I certainly recommend people check it out on their internet. Is that in 1980 there was a man called Robert Stone from Birmingham, England, who started to make a connection. They call it biophilia,
Yep.
that we have a connection to plants, and that's why gardening is one of the great therapies for people when they're depressed. And it's certainly something we advise if you have a yard and you're getting older and don't have a real your family around you or a lot of friends, that actually working in the garden raises those neurotransmitters I was talking about. They also found that when they had just pictures of trees and the color either green or blue on the walls or the world, like a big poster of the ocean or a poster of the forest, that people needed less painkillers.
Huh. So green and blue, the colors of the earth, can make you want less painkillers.
Right, and pictures of that as well. And they're starting to understand that in hospitals and putting up pictures in their rooms. It's kind of sort of creating a virtual green therapy. You can even have, as you know, on computers, and even on TVs, you can get a picture that will go on there. Sometimes people get fireplaces, but they might be better off having a picture of the ocean and dolphins or a beautiful green forest. And the other piece, we have 5 senses, so ecotherapy can hit all senses. Hearing noises, sounds. They found that people who heard sounds of birds in the ICU spent less time in there.
Yeah.
And they're also doing more studies in rehab and in homes for the elderly of having bird sounds, and they find that people are more alert.
No kidding.
Yeah, bird sounds are very powerful. They're and it's so wonderful because we now have these contraptions that you can just that you can buy that have all these different sounds on them. The surf and the birds and the rain in the forest, and they're very helpful with creating relaxation. If you suffer from anxiety, putting on those sounds can absolutely calm the body down.
Okay. How about if you get a client and you're starting some of this, like you say, different methodologies, ecotherapy. How about if they're just not into it or they're resistant to it? How do you bring them along?
You asked the $60 million question for all therapists, because we always are dealing with clients who have resistance to doing lots of things we know will make them feel better, just like MDs do. Take your medication, you'll feel better.
Right.
And what I do is I look at the piece of what is the fear behind it.
Right.
And I then ask them if what they have been doing has been helping them get better.
Okay.
And usually the answer is no. And I say, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Let's just sit here and listen to this and see what comes up for you. And I'll give a guided meditation while I'm playing the sounds of the surf, the ocean. I'll ask them which one they like better.
Right.
But, resistance is what anyone who tries to help people has to deal with, because people are in fear and they keep thinking that, they know what's going to work for them.
So it's sort of systemic to your industry. You're used to that happening. You're used to Downing Thomases coming in to your office and not, it's part of your industry anyway. So it's something that you've learned how to bring people along.
Yes, you're trained in that. And there's a thing called motivational interviewing. There's books and articles all about it. And basically, to raise motivation is you examine what the problems are with what they're doing now and how it's affecting them. So that if you're, there's this man named Thomas Holdcroft who said, people change not because they see the light, but because they feel the heat.
Hey, but for our listeners who just joined us, we're so honored to have Melody Anderson with us on today. She has a fascinating addiction and therapy program that she runs. You could learn more about it on her website, counselingbymmelody.com. I'm on her website right now. It's a form of Ecominded Therapy we're talking about. Of course, she is a very, very successful addiction counselor in all things therapy and getting people well. But today we're talking about Ecominded Therapy. On that line, and I don't mean to be controversial at all, but given that the laws are changing so fast, and I really don't even know, it's just there's such a sea change now with regards to marijuana. Some people say that pot or slash marijuana is an organic product, and say, what's the problem in using that? Isn't that ecotherapy? I mean, talk. Can you share some of your thoughts on this, because this is just such a very, very fast moving topic that a lot of people in America have strong feelings about.
Well, the heroin comes from a poppy, so we can say that's therapeutic as well.
Oh boy, now we're going down a road, aren't we?
So that's kind of a bad excuse.
No.
Magic mushrooms are organic. So the reality is this: there's two sides, and the side that says that marijuana is not a problem are in fact ill-informed. Yeah. And the fact that we're discovering with marijuana and how it affects the brain is that it affects an area of the brain called the hippocampus, which handles memory, mood, and motivation. And when those cells start to die off, a person experiences depression, immobility, lack of drive, and that is exactly the same area in the brain that marijuana hits. And what we're finding is the younger, especially with males, the younger someone starts using pot, there seems to be an increase in the percentage of users who will experience schizophrenia.
This is not good.
No, it's not good. And, people drink and kill people in cars, too. I mean,
right.
It's the issue of anything to excess. I always like to define addiction this way, is that is this substance you're using, and it can be also, process addictions like computers, sex, watching TV, also eating, all that sort of thing. Is what you're doing keeping you from affecting the quality of your life? Right. Do you find that you're lying about how much you're doing? Do you find that you've tried to quit and you can't, or lessen the amount and you can't? Because some people can use substances and not become addicted. And with some people, they lack the thermometer in their brain that's telling them, oh, okay, two drinks is enough, you don't need any more. 2 puffs is enough, and you don't need any more. And I think that's the risk anyone takes when they get involved with alcohol and other substances.
I agree with you. I'm so glad you said that. Melody, we're down to 2 minutes,
Sure.
and I want to leave this to you to wrap up, because you have such a great message, and this is so important for people to hear. There's so much going on right now with regards to addiction, and there are lots of opportunities to get well with great people like you and the great service that you have. You wrap from here and do any shameless plugs you like, because we need more people in the world like you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, the best information is hoping that people will do something to heal them. And if someone has no money, they can go to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if someone is a family member or a loved one of someone who's got an addiction, I recommend the organization Al-Anon. They can reach us on all the websites and get their information, have chat rooms, get the books, all this sort of thing. It's very important not to be alone with either of these issues. And as far as I'm concerned, please check me out at www.counselingbymelody.com. And I will be speaking out in California here in August about loving someone who's got a thing called co-occurring disorders. That means they have a mental illness as well as an addiction. And I'll be putting all that up on my website soon.
That is great. And for our listeners out there, the great thing about Melody and the message that she brings today about ecotherapy is that there's hope out there. There's hope because Melody and other great people like her can help you change your behavior if you really want to change. And again, her great website, and I'm on it now. It is wonderful. It's full of information and full of ways to connect with Melody if you'd like to do that. It's www.counselingbymelody.com. Melody Anderson, you're always welcome back here because the world needs more people like you. You're an inspiring ecotherapy leader and truly living proof that green is good.